So that's kind of important when you listen to the words of Yeshua, and he's talking about the future. Is he talking about the future, or is he talking about now? But if my only options are the future, we're not talking about the past. If my only options in talking about now and the future are the future, and I'm a Greek translator, and I come to that, I'm going to pick a future in my tense that means future, because it matches. If I don't know, so then you're missing something. He could be talking about, no, it's now. It's now. But we're reading it as it's some future thing. And that'll become important when we get to the Sermon on the Mount, which isn't in this series. Okay, so that's literal equivalency. Functional equivalency is, we're not going to worry so much about making absolutely every word come over. We're just going to try and say the same thing as close as we can. That's functional. In other words, that's how they say it in their language. We're going to try and say the same thing in our language. Not going to try and make a one-to-one correspondence, but we'll try and make it as close to that as we can. That's functional equivalency. In other words,
would be like trying to communicate an idea?
Yeah. Well, trying to communicate an idea using our language, trying to make it function the same way that theirs did. So we're making a function, instead of a word for word equivalency, we're making a function for function equivalency. Then they have the other type is dynamic equivalency. Regardless of any of that, how would I say it if it was my original idea? So in my language, in my day and time, if I were the one saying that, how would I say it? That's a very different type of translation. Dynamic, in other words, how does my language all by itself work? And I'm going to say it that way. So we'll come back to those, and I'll show you some examples. Now let's talk about some features of Hebrew. Hebrew has a thing called poetry, Hebrew poetry. Now when I think of poetry in English, I think it has to have a certain rhythm, has to rhyme, or these days it neither has to have rhythm or rhyme or say anything. But in Hebrew poetry, that has nothing to do with it. Hebrew poetry is simply saying the same thing twice a different way. That's Hebrew poetry. So you might call it different things, but it's saying the exact same thing 2 times in a row for emphasis and for beauty, but saying it different ways. Here you go. This is a good example of Hebrew poetry. Here's Yeshua talking about these kids in the marketplace. We played the flute for you and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, it's a funeral song. We sang a dirge to you and you did not mourn. Well, they sound like different things. If you don't know such a thing as Hebrew poetry, then you have to look at them as different things. But if you know that there's such a thing as Hebrew poetry, you can see that and say, oh, he's saying the same thing. What is he saying? Instead of me looking only at the top and trying to figure out what he says there, and then looking only at the bottom and trying to figure out what he means there, I look at them both and realize he's saying one thing, and then I can begin to figure out what he's saying. What is he saying? I think the entire point of what he's saying is that you're not responding properly.
Right.
That's what he's saying. 2 ways of saying the same, 2 examples saying the same thing.
And they're opposite.
And they're opposite, but that's not the point. The point
Right.
is, or it helps the point, because you can see in either, whatever the case is, you're not responding properly.
Right.
We played happy music for you and you weren't happy.
And you
We played
said
sad music for you and you weren't sad.
Yeah. When I see it and I read it, it's like something's with the person that you're talking to. There's something going inside of his mind that is just taken away from happy or sadness.
Right. And this is all in a bigger context of people not responding properly. So he then just says it. Here's another one. So they say to him, and this is during his trial, if you are Messiah, tell us. And he replies, if I tell you, you will not believe, and if I question you, you will not answer. Hebrew poetry. He's saying the exact same thing twice. Well, to us it looks like completely different things. Telling and asking are opposites, kind of, in our way of thinking. But what did we learn about questioning last time?
Right.
The questions are the answer. In other words, if I just flatly tell you, you just won't accept it. And if I try and dialogue with you, you won't engage in dialogue with me. So what's the point? If you are the Messiah, tell us. And he's like, why?
Yeah.
What's the point? Hebrew word plays. A wordplay in Hebrew is where they will take more or less the same word, and words have a variety of forms, and they'll take a particular root or particular letters, and they'll use them again, meaning something different, for fun. And you don't have to look very far in the Hebrew Bible to find it. This is the very first words of the Hebrew Bible, and here it is. See those? It's the same. Bereshit bara. In the beginning, God created. Bere bara. It's a wordplay. Starts right in the beginning. And Hebrew loves this. It's on every page. It's everywhere. Here's another one. What is it? Ha-Adam, Adam, the man. Ha-Adam. Afar min, from ha-Adamah, from the ground. Well, there it is. Adam, Adamah. See, it's another wordplay. He made the Adam from the Adamah. Here's one in the New Testament. So this is John at the river again, talking about from these stones. Don't be proud that you're sons of Abraham, because I tell you that from these stones God can raise up children to Abraham. So there it is. Avanim, stones, banim, sons. So there's a wordplay there. And it connects. The stones and the sons connect. Here's Isaiah 51:1. Listen to me, you who pursue saving justice, you who seek the Lord. Consider the rock from which you were hewn, the quarry from which you were dug, Abraham your father. So there's a connection. Anyway, Hebrew just loves these word plays. It's all over the place. And there's another one. And we'll end with that little stuff. Or think of any Russian girl name that you can think of.
Are you supposed to say it?
Huh?
You want us to say
Yeah,
it?
just say it out.
Yeah.
Natasha.
Natasha. Okay.
Talia.
Talia, Natalia,
Talia.
Maria, Julia, Anastasia. Anna. They all end with A. Every Russian girl name ends with A. They all do. Olga, Stefania, they all do. And if one doesn't, it wasn't originally a Russian name. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. They all do. Well, in Greek, for some reason, also I don't know why, male names have to end with a sigma, an S. They all do. Stephanos, Paulos, Saulos, Petros. They all do. Once you take the apostles' names and put them into Greek, Johannes, they all do. You take your name, you put it in Greek letters, and you slap an S on the end. They all do. I don't know why, but when you know that, then you can understand. Now there is a Greek word, Petra, that means rock. This kind, not a stone that you could pick, not one you even could pick up, but like bedrock or a mountain. That's Petra. That's that kind of a rock. Okay? Well, if you wanted to name someone Rock, you wouldn't call him Petra. You'd have to put an S or a sigma on the end, and then be Petros. That would be the name of someone if you wanted to call him Rock. So you've got a word play that some people like to say is a Greek word play. In Petros, Petra, you are Petros, and on this rock, on this Petra, I will build my congregation. But it's not. It won't work in Greek.